All right, we expect that we'll have some folks continuing to join us, but it is 3 o'clock, so we will jump right in. I am Danielle Valle. I'm the Chief of Institutional Effectiveness and Accreditation, and I am the Dallas College SAC COC liaison. And Pauline is our newest teammate. She's joining to help moderate this session. And so I want to let you know a little bit about how this is going to work this afternoon. You might have already seen that your video and your voice function or mute function is turned off. So this is kind of functioning more like a webinar than a typical Teams meeting. The chat is also disabled, but at the top you will see a Q&A. And as we're going along, please put your questions in that Q&A spot right there. And when we get to the Q&A portion of the presentation, Pauline will be able to read those off to me, and we'll discuss and hopefully answer all your questions by the end of the session. And also wanted to bring your attention to the fact that we are recording this session, and we will be posting it on our Institutional Effectiveness and Accreditation website once it is all booked and published and transcribed and everything. So if you have colleagues that might not have been able to attend the session today, or if you have any reason you need to jump off earlier or would like to rewatch it, that's where it will be at a later date. So we will jump right in and start talking about Dallas College's QEP. And when we say Dallas College's QEP, it is really important to remember, I'm sure many of you participated in one of your historic DCCC colleges QEPs in the past. So while this is our first Dallas College QEP, it's certainly not our first experience with QEP for many of us. So we look forward to all of you bringing your expertise and your experience with the QEP at the historic colleges forward to the development of our Dallas College QEP. So what is a QEP? It is a required component of our accreditation work with SAC COC, and we are in the process of going through our reaffirmation cycle, which means we will be turning in our compliance certification in the spring and hosting our on-site visit in the fall. And one of those components is the QEP. And if you are thinking, oh my gosh, that is not enough time to do QEP, you are right. It is not enough time to do QEP. It is enough time to define what our QEP is, to basically construct our proposal. So the way that goes, we'll discuss that, but don't panic yet. Right now we are identifying our topic and going to be working on developing our proposal over the next year. Some critical components of the QEP is that it is a designed course of action. It means it is a project that has a specific focus and a topic that we have clearly identified that is directly connected to improving student learning or student success. And this is a difference from what you might have experienced in some of the previous QEPs. Historically, the requirement was that the QEP was focused on student learning. So many of our QEPs were on topics like critical thinking, reading skills, mathematics skills. It had to be attached to student learning. Now we have the choice of having that QEP to be centered on student learning or an aspect of student success, like retention or completion, for example. And it is a 5-year project that has to have measurable outcomes. That is a requirement of the project that is critical for us to think about upfront while we're developing. The idea is that we ensure that we're developing something that we can measure and demonstrate the outcomes for eventually. So the requirements are for our quality enhancement plan is that it's derived from our institutional planning and evaluation processes, that it has broad-based support from institutional constituencies, and those constituencies are not just employees, they are all employee groups plus students and community leaders as well. The QEP, as I said, has to be specifically related to student learning outcomes or to student success. And it takes a significant commitment. Again, some of you, if you've had previous experience with the QEP, know that it's a significant investment for the institution, and that is remains a requirement of the QEP still. It is important to note when we say we're doing our first Dallas College QEP, there will only be one. We will be having one QEP plan that is implemented and is significant enough that it is implemented across the institution. So it will have a reach across all of our campuses, but we will not have in campus-based or individual QEPs. There will be one Dallas College QEP. And as I said, it has to have included with it a plan of how we are going to assess our level of success. Right now, as I said, we are working on the topic selection phase of the QEP. Implementation will come later, and we are really looking forward to the input of the institution, not just in the topic selection phase, but also, of course, in the implementation phase. So in August, we started with our, we're sending our invitations to our Quality Enhancement Plan Development Committee. That is a wide representative group that will have faculty, administration, staff, students, and community leaders represented on that group. And in September, you should have received invitations just yesterday or the day before for some World Cafe type sessions in September. Those sessions are your best opportunity to have some really specific ways to not just share a broad idea, but to shape what a full-fledged QEP project outline could look like, and to use your voice to evaluate and compare all of the ideas that your colleagues and students and community leaders come up with in the room, and you get to say which one you think is the best choice for Dallas College, and we'll see what rises to the top. Now, these sessions are not the only ways that we are collecting information. We've done surveys with faculty, staff, and administration. We have had meetings with student leaders. We have had meetings with, and will continue to have, with campus leadership teams as well. And as I said, we'll have community leaders invited to participate in these sessions as well. So we are really working diligently to have a multitude of ways for folks to provide their input. And we thank you to all of those who have participated in the surveys that we've had so far. Those are helping to inform the categories and the kind of starting point for our sessions in September. So thank you for that. If you are able, please look at that invitation to those sessions in September and select one. They're duplicate sessions, so you only have to attend one that works for your schedule, and commit to attending and participating. That would be wonderful, and we hope that we have those rooms full of folks ready to share their voices and contribute to identifying which QEP topics rise to the top for our committee. Once we have all of that information, our QEP Development Committee will meet in October, and they will have the opportunity to review all of the information that's been collected, all of the ideas, all of the themes, and specifically the handful of ideas that are a little bit more fleshed out, the outlines that come out of those September sessions that got the most votes or attention from the folks in the room, and we'll make a final decision on what Dallas College's QEP is going to be. And once we have that, we will have some sessions to kind of put some meat on the bones of what that project will look like with some more detail. And that will inform our QEP executive summary that will go with our compliance certification. And then from March through August, we will be developing a full proposal that will include what kinds of budget investments is needed, additional details about how and when and who is going to be responsible for the work of implementing the QEP. And it will go in August with our on-site committee information for our visit in October. So it's important to note that the QEP cannot start, we can't implement until that proposal is approved by the on-site committee in October of 2024. Then we have those 5 years from that point to our 5th year report to implement our QEP and assess the impact that it has had. The sessions in September are, again, they're probably the most kind of hands-on opportunity that you have to really influence what comes to the top and to share your idea and your perspective about what is most needed at Dallas College in terms of a quality enhancement plan. So we want a broad audience. We want a lot of representative participation from across the college. And we want to know that when you only have 3 sessions, some folks are not going to be able to attend. There might be one that there's just not one that fits with your schedule. We understand that and wish that we could have more sessions and wish that we could ensure that we've got one available for everyone. But please just know that if you are looking at those sessions and trying to make a plan, if you register for one of those sessions, please attend. Please commit to being there and participating in the session. This is one of the ways where we're kind of taking all of that broad input and narrowing it down to some manageable ideas to put forth to the committee. So it is it's going to be a lot of, I think, interesting and fun work to do in just a couple of hours to kind of distill the information that we have and to share ideas and to collaborate with folks across the college. So your time and your commitment is greatly appreciated, and we hope that you'll be able to find one of those sessions that works for you. One of the things that we have done already is implement some broad surveys. So we did surveys about the QEP topic across each of our 3 employee groups. So the first went out to faculty in the late spring in May, and then staff and administrators were able to respond in August. So we've taken all of that feedback, all of that input into what Dallas College problem we would like to tackle, how would we tackle it, and how would we assess it. And so far, there are some pretty clear themes that were emerging that were in the top 3 for faculty and staff in particular, which were success coaching, advising, and study skills or learning methods. The top themes for administrators so far are retention and persistence and career and soft skill development. So that's the kind of information that's helping us identify the categories or the starting points for topic ideas, among others, that we will be sharing in September. But so far, just wanted to share with you what we're seeing at this initial collection of data, and we'll see if those themes persist through our sessions in September or if new themes for potential topics emerge. One thing, there's a lot of things to keep in mind with QEP, but one thing that I think is really important for us to keep in mind when we are filling out surveys or participating in this input in any way is that it has to be a student-centered topic. And I think that a lot of us can think of operational challenges that Dallas College is having, or administrative challenges that Dallas College is having. And those concerns and those challenges are valid and they are real. They're just not necessarily going to be appropriate for a QEP topic. And while all of that eventually affects students, we really want to be able to put a very, very tight connection between our topic and what it is going to do for students directly. And again, that has to be in the area of either student learning or student success. So, and career soft skills, critical thinking, reading skills are examples for student learning, retentions, credential completion, job placement. All of those things are the kinds of ideas around student success that we can consider. But just know, as you're participating and you're providing your input, we want to be sure and where we have captured information about other challenges, we are trying to direct that to the appropriate folks who might be able to address that issue. Just know that for those kinds of challenges, the QEP is not likely to be the best place to raise that concern or propose a solution. So the sessions like seat at the table, participation in employee surveys, finding other ways to put forth your ideas and solutions for Dallas College operationally. We hope you take advantage of those as well. There will be a lot of great ideas. We are going to come up with a lot of ideas that are very student-centered, that are urgent and important and real, but we have to choose one. So it really is going to be interesting to see how folks get around a table in a room and share their ideas and how we pull this together for one comprehensive Dallas College QEP. So just know that because of all of those great ideas, your particular topic may or may not end up being the one that is selected. But we hope that will motivate you even more to participate and to share your idea and shape and influence the QEP that Dallas College ends up selecting. And the other challenge is that it does have to be measurable. There is a lot, I think, job placement and kind of post Dallas College work that is really, it is important. It is central to student success. It is central to what our mission and what we're doing. And it's also very hard to measure sometimes. And sometimes actually having access to that data can be a real challenge. So as we are engaging with particular ideas, ensuring that we want to ensure that we are asking ourselves and asking each other if the project that is being proposed actually, if we have the information to measure it, if it can be measured, and do we have access reliably to that data, because it is a required component of the project. So QEP next steps, we will have the sessions in September that will take place on 3 of our campuses, well, 2 campuses and Bill J. Priest. And we hope that you are able to participate in one of those. The QEP Development Committee will be meeting and sharing, we'll be sharing all of the information that we've collected and bringing forth the ideas that have risen to the top for them to be able to make a final decision on what Dallas College's QEP topic will be. Once we have that topic identified, we will pull together some relevant groups. So for example, what I mean by relevant groups, if the topic is around a particular aspect of student learning, we would want to convene the faculty members who are closest to that content expertise. If the topic ends up being student success in terms of success coaching or academic advising, we want to pull that team together and have them to have a voice at the table about the kind of the details that come around that plan and what exactly that project is going to be to inform our executive summary. Once we have that executive summary completed and we're transitioning to a full proposal that includes like I said, but the budget investment, the who is going to take responsibility for what. Then our QEP development committee will eventually shift into the QEP implementation committee. So some folks might stay on, some folks might roll off and be replaced by folks who have content expertise or work closely with whatever the QEP topic ends up being. And when we host our SAC COC reaffirmation committee in October, reviewing the QEP proposal is one of their tasks, and asking us questions and ensuring that we have broadly communicated about what our intentions and plans are with QEP. And hopefully we get that green light of approval from them at that point and can start implementing our QEP to benefit our students. So that is a lot of information in a short amount of time about what we are, what the plans are for QEP. But again, broadly, we are seeking input from across Dallas College, including from our students and from the community leaders that we work most closely with. We want to ensure that the project that we select is directly connected to student learning or student success. And we want to be sure that the topic that we select is measurable, that we can implement this project and fully implement it for 5 years and be able to measure the success and the improvement in the area that we identified, and are able to provide that full report of our successful QEP implementation with our 5th year report to SAC COC. So I am going to come back from the presentation. And if you have questions, if you have not yet, please put those questions in the Q&A tab up there at the top. And we will spend the remainder of the time answering questions, and hopefully that has been helpful to you. As I said, we are recording, so we will post the completed session on our Institutional Effectiveness and Accreditation SharePoint site when it is complete. So, Pauline, do we have any questions in the Q&A yet?
Yes, so we have some questions. So the first question is around the format for the meetings in September. So, so the person is asking, can you tell us about the format?
Yes, so somewhat, I think. If you've participated in any of the Words That Matter sessions or a seat at the table sessions, they're similar to that. They'll be facilitated in partnership with our office, with the Strategic Initiatives Office. So we will start with, you'll have the choice of selecting what table that you want to sit at, and if you want to identify a QEP that's in the category of 2 through or beyond. The intent is that we will have some kind of starting categories. You'll have some information about the data that's been collected to this point in terms of some of the themes that we've seen, some of the ideas that we've seen most frequently. And then you will, with your small group at your table, develop a QEP idea, or 2 or 3, depending on how much time that you have and how quickly you have those ideas flowing. But we're going to be asking you to elaborate on some of the information that we've collected in the surveys. So if whatever the broad topic that you and your team at your table selects, what would you do about it? What does that look like? What is the action or the activity that you would undertake in that project? And how would you assess it? How would you know if it was successful? And so again, you can generate as many of those as you're able to in the allotted time. And then there will be an opportunity to share ideas across the room. And then also have the opportunity to evaluate and say, kind of make your mark about the top 2 or 3 ideas that in the room that you think that is the best QEP for Dallas College. And so we'll be able to see thematically which kinds of categories rise to the top, which kinds of activity rise to the top, and also kind of walk out of there with at least some broad outline ideas of which kind of QEP concepts have risen to the top. And all of that information will be shared and part of what the QEP Development Committee considers before they make their final determination of what the topic will be.
All right, so the next question is, have the members of the QEP Development Committee been selected? Are faculty from different schools of, as well as different campuses being considered?
Yes, so we have not, we are actually sending the invitations out to those committee members today, but I've had conversations since the question is specifically about faculty, I'll address that. The intent is to invite the folks that are representative on the faculty council. So each, I believe it's by campus, each campus president will be invited to be a part of the QEP Development Committee. If they're unable to participate, we're asking that they suggest a proxy or someone that can participate in their place. But it will be a large committee. it's a pretty big size, pretty big group, because again, we want full representation from faculty, staff, administrators, students, and community leaders. And we are definitely taking into consideration not just locations, but job function and different, ensuring that we have different functions and different levels of folks and work represented across the committee.
Okay, so somebody added to that question and they're asking, will staff from all levels be able to participate in the committee as well?
So we are doing the committee by invitation, and those invitations are specifically and intentionally being sent to folks, not just in staff, but also administrators of different levels. So this is not a committee, for example, that's made up of just the Chancellor's Executive Committee, for example. In fact, I may be the only one from the executive team that is on, and I'm not really on the committee. We're facilitating the committee. So there is a lot of intention being put into ensuring that we have representation from different levels of work in each employee group. So in terms of staff, that is a range of positions, a range of functions, and a range of levels across the institution.
Okay. Another question is, will we have some examples to get a good idea of what a good QEP looks like?
That is a great recommendation, and that is something that we can absolutely recommend to the strategic initiatives group that we include in the materials that you have access to. I'm just writing it down. Example QEPs. So we will try to have some of those available at the session, and I may even be able to, if they're not too large, at least send some executive summary examples from some other institutions. It is also a simple Google search. There's a lot of institutions that publish their QEP executive summaries. Some of them publish their full reports that you can kind of see the range of QEPs that are out there. You will, at this point, you'll see most of them are going to be focused on an aspect of student learning, since that is relatively new to be able to select something that's instead focused more on a student success. But there are definitely some really strong student success focused examples as well. And we'll do what we can to add some of those examples in the sessions in September.
Okay, so there are two more questions. One is it possible to have a copy of the slides?
Yes, we can, when we publish the video, we will also publish the slides on our institutional effectiveness and accreditation SharePoint site.
Okay.
If
And then
if you want it urgently, you can always email me and I'll happily email you it right back if you'd rather not wait for us to publish it to the SharePoint site.
And then the last question is it possible to schedule at least one virtual session sometime in September for individuals who can't attend any of the 3 sessions?
Yes, we've had that request, and we're definitely taking that under consideration. And if we add a virtual session, it may not be the complexity of what we are able to accomplish in the room is difficult to replicate on Teams. So if we are able to offer a virtual session, it might be kind of, I think they call it a moderated feedback session, where it's kind of a back and forth and an opportunity to kind of vote things up and down and share input in a slightly different way. But we are considering adding that option to the calendar in late September. And if we do, you'll receive, as you have for this session and for the sessions in September, you'll receive an invitation notification to that. And if we do hold one of those, the benefit of that is that it's open to anyone who would like to participate, like this session is. And so we're not limited by space. But we can't quite exactly do what we're doing in the room in those September sessions. But we definitely hear and understand that may be the best options for some folks. So we are considering adding that as well.
So I just have one more question that just came in, and it's if we have submitted a topic but understand more after the session, can we submit another?
Yes, you can. I think. So I think I'm not sure if you would get an error message on the survey or not. I think that's what you're asking, is if you can go back to the survey and provide another example. So I would say if you go back to that email and the survey works for you, it will update to us. If you get an error message, please feel free to email me. You can just send it directly and say, I had a different idea or another thought, and we can add that to the data as well. But again, even better would be to participate in one of those September sessions. That's an opportunity to share that idea and really be able to talk it through with some colleagues and hopefully build some consensus around it and flesh it out a little bit in the room. So if that's an option for you, that's probably even better, not probably, it's definitely even better than emailing me. But if that's not an option for you, please feel free to send me your idea.
Okay, so I don't see any other questions.
Okay.
It covers everything.
Okay. So there's a few things that I want to be sure that I say, and if you think of a question, by all means, pop it in the Q&A still.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry. Somebody has put something in. Okay, so it says, so are the QEP plans you like from other colleges or university that align with Dallas College's themes and opportunities? For example, focus on equity or economic opportunity?
So broadly speaking, yes, there's a lot of opportunity for us to really clearly align this QEP to our mission, to our strategic priorities, to our strategic plan. And I think the key there is we want to be sure that the project that we identify and the topic that we identify is tightly, clearly connected to student learning or student success, I think is where you're leaning with that question. So it has to be very directly connected to student success, and it has to be measurable, and it has to be measurable within that 5-year span. So provided that we are able to say that we could implement this topic, we have a high degree of confidence that this work will directly impact this aspect of student success and we can measure it, then it's a viable option. I will say that I think some of those, as I said, like kind of the post Dallas College or post any college or university outcomes become trickier to be able to measure. Not impossible, but do become trickier. So that would be my only kind of caution about that kind of direction, is we would have to be very sure up front before we kind of really head down that road with selecting that topic, that we can finish the work and clearly demonstrate that what we did had an impact in a measurable way. And as I think if you look at like I said, a quick search of what we're seeing in terms of student success focused QEPs tend to be focused on the things that happen at the institution. So the persistence and completion tends to be the theme of what they're trying to address. But that can be addressed in a whole host of ways. Like we've seen the themes that we're seeing rise to the top so far is the idea of success coaching or advising. So what is something that we could do or improve with success coaching and academic advising that would improve retention and completion, for example? You tend to see more of that than what you're going to do to improve outcomes after they leave Dallas College. And likely that's because that information becomes more difficult to measure.
Okay, so one more question just came in. So it says the categories you noted are from administration. Are we developing plans based on those categories, or are we deciding on broad categories and then topics?
So I want to clarify this. So the surveys that we did, and I think I can pop back over to my presentation if I need to, but it'll get posted. I will post it so you'll see it again. But the surveys that we've done so far have been for all three employee groups, faculty, staff, and administration. So I think if you're referencing, and if I'm answering this and you're going, no, you didn't get it right, put a clarifying question in the Q&A and I'll try again. But the themes that we've seen so far is that staff and faculty both said that the things that came up most frequently were success coaching and advising, and I'm not going to remember the other one off the top of my head. But then for administration, it was persistence and soft skills. So we are presenting all of them. So we are looking at them collectively and by employee group, and all of those categories will be included in those September sessions as our starting point of the kind of broad idea of a topic. And then folks will be able to kind of fill in the blanks with their ideas from there. But we are certainly not only taking administrative themes forward or only taking faculty themes forward. We're intentionally and purposely taking all of those ideas forward. And we're also surveying our students as well to ask them, what would be most helpful to you? What's the category or the work that Dallas College could do to most improve your success from your perspective? All of that information is informing those kind of starting points for the September sessions, and all of that information will be part of the data that the QEP Development Committee considers in making a final determination. So like I said, if I answered your question, that's great. If I didn't quite, please feel free to put a clarifying question in the Q&A.
Okay, so there are a couple more. Do we have? We're okay. Okay.
Oh yeah, we're good. We're good.
Okay, perfect. So the next one is, how does the outcome of the QEP after the 5 years affect Dallas College?
So it is like any other standard. we've either met the compliance standard or we have not met the compliance standard. So I think that's what you're asking, kind of what the consequence is if we don't have a successful QEP. And really it is that we have to demonstrate that we have met all of those 5 main components of the QEP, that we have done, that we've checked each one of those thoroughly and purposefully. So let's say, for example, that our QEP is about math skills, and we want our students to be able to perform at a particular level on a particular kind of assessment. And we go through the QEP process, we implement what we think is a great project, we put a lot of effort and energy around it, and we don't quite make the goal that we wanted to. It doesn't mean that we have failed our QEP and will get found in non-compliance because we didn't quite meet our goal. It is seeking improvement, but what we would have a problem with is if we got to the end of our QEP and we're like, oh yeah, we never measured how much they improved in their math skills. We missed that component, then we would be in non-compliance with that particular standard that's attached to the QEP. And it usually, if you're in non-compliance with a standard, you get a little more time to demonstrate compliance, which in our case, in a case like that, it would probably mean you have an additional opportunity to do the assessment that's necessary for the report. But I don't have any compliance concerns. I don't think we're worried about being able to demonstrate compliance with that completed project, provided that we do our good work up front and ask ourselves those critical questions of, is this directly connected to student learning or student outcomes? And is it measurable? As long as we select a project that really is rooted in those 2 things, then compliance with our final report will not be an issue.
Okay, and the final question so far in the Q&A section is, will we receive some kind of professional development credit for this work?
It's possible. It will depend on the role, and it will depend on the kind of the structure. There are specific requirements that are outside of our office that have to do with what counts as a professional development opportunity and what doesn't. So if there are activities that meet those criteria, then by all means, we would want folks to have the opportunity to get professional development credit for that. But there may be some activities that don't necessarily meet all of those requirements. But in general, particularly if a component of the QEP is a professional development for a particular group, so a particular kind of student success coach professional development or a faculty professional development opportunity, we would certainly work with the necessary teams to make sure that folks got professional development credit for that. It will kind of vary and depend on the particular kind of activity and your role in it. I would say as we're going along, if there's anything that comes up and it looks to you like you should get professional development credit for your participation, and that's not clear in our communication or whoever is leading that particular activity, please don't hesitate to send us a message and remind us and say, hey, have you checked? have you done the work to make sure that we get professional development credit for this? If it meets the criteria, we will be happy to work with the necessary offices to make sure that you get that credit for that time.
Okay, so somebody added a sentence about that, and it says, it sounds like it would qualify for PD hours, but you wouldn't get credit until after Workday Learning goes live on September 11. So somebody put that in this section.
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
So it sounds like you would qualify for PD hours, but you wouldn't get credit until after Workday Learning goes live on September 11th.
Got you. Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, I am not familiar with the exact criteria for what does and does not
Mhm.
count as professional development credit. Are you specific? And if whoever asked the question, please pop the response in the Q&A. Are you specifically asking if you will get professional development credit for participating in one of the sessions in September? If that's, then I hadn't thought about that, but if there, I will put that down as a thing that you're to check on. What I can't say for what I know that I can't say for sure is whether or not other activities attached to QEP will count for professional development or not. But are we referring to the September sessions specifically?
Somebody has posted yes.
Okay. I will ask
Okay,
because
perfect.
as I said, that's on my list of things to check on. Because I'm just not familiar with what the criteria specifically is. So we'll check.
Okay, so a couple more things. So somebody has posted Equity Minded Education, the QEP plan, which is a QEP from Santa Fe College. And then so they've posted a link, and then question is, who is responsible for the final writing of the QEP?
So really all of the QEP work is a cooperative effort between our office and then whoever ends up kind of driving the actual implementation, and that depends on what the topic is. So if the implementation and the work will be sort of like if folks are familiar with how our office helps facilitate assessment with faculty, we help make sure that you've got the tools to do what you need, that you've got resources to ask questions and get guidance, and we're kind of setting some key parts of the process. But faculty do the assessment work. It will likely end up being that kind of a partnership where we're making sure we've got our eyes on those 5 big requirements and kind of the necessary components of the QEP. But it's not likely that the QEP will be our offices to implement because we don't work directly with students. It's very unlikely that it will be our office's responsibility to implement. So we will likely be facilitating work with faculty if it has to do with student learning, or folks in student success, academics and academic administrators, staff. It'll depend on the topic, who we're working with, but they're going to be kind of the on the ground doing the implementation of the QEP with our support and our facilitation. And part of the depending on what the topic is, part of the institutional investment may be hiring specific staff that have responsibility for the QEP. That's something that was frequently done historically at the colleges, and it's a common practice. So that again, though, will depend on the specific topic. So we're there to kind of help with the guardrails and the milestones, and to support the implementation, that whoever is most closely connected to this work will actually be doing the implementation. When it comes to the writing, it will be, again, a joint effort between us and the folks who do that work. So along the way, we'll be making sure that we've collected the right kind of data, we have the information that we need, and we can support with the drafting of the final report, and to have those folks kind of checking us and making sure that what we are writing is complete and accurate, and that the end product is an accurate and robust representation of the work that was done across Dallas College for the previous 5 years.
Okay, so another point, just stepping back to
Uh-huh.
the PD. So
Okay.
someone's clarified, and then I have another question. So someone's
Okay.
clarified and said we can arrange for PD credit for the session. So that's positive.
Okay.
And then the question is if there is a plan to improve student learning over 5 years, can we bring to the table issues or just positive ideas to improve DC performance?
I'm not 100% sure that I fully understand what you're asking. I think if what you're asking is if it's an issue of student learning, typically what you're seeing is the articulation of the plan is we're going to improve X aspect of student learning. And often it's related to one of the core objectives of the institution, or it might be soft skills, it might be marketable skills, something like that, but it's typically articulated like we want to improve this particular kind of aspect of student learning. So if what you're saying is, can we bring problems? I think inherent in the question is that we're trying to solve a problem, but if they need to be problems that we, Dallas College, can have an impact on. So for example, I think in some of the survey data, there was some question or some ideas around college readiness. Absolutely a real problem, a real need. But I think what we have to ask ourselves is, what can Dallas College do by the time they get to us? They are college students. Does that make, so is that a problem that we can have an impact on is more the question. So you can frame it as, I would like to improve this aspect of student learning, or you can frame it as, we think there's a problem with this kind of student learning. The questions that need to follow that though are, is it measurable, and is there work that we can do, that we have control over, that can directly impact that. So I'm not sure if that answers the question. I'm not sure I fully understood what the question was, but so if it wasn't quite what you were asking, please provide a clarifying question, and I'll take another crack at it. But whether it's framed as this is a problem we're trying to solve, or this is the thing we want to improve, either way is an okay way to approach it. We just have to follow up with those questions of, is that a problem that we can solve? And is it directly related to student learning? Because again, I think the other thing that we saw was the identification of very real operational challenges for Dallas College. Those are valid. I believe that, they're real. But is the QEP going to be the right way to address that problem? Not likely, because we are required so tightly to connect it directly to students. It can't be one of those situations like, if X office performed better, then students would have a better experience with this, kind of, that's true. But we don't want to have that kind of where you have to connect the dots. If you have to kind of connect the dots for how this gets directly to students, that is not likely going to end up being the best topic for QEP, even if it is a very real challenge for Dallas College that needs to be addressed. It likely needs to be brought up to a different group and addressed in a different way. Any more questions?
Nothing new.
All right, so we just have a few minutes left. So I just wanted to say kind of on that where we just were we're ending. There's a lot. I think the interesting and fun part of this kind of activity and undertaking is that it's an opportunity to be creative, and it's an opportunity to think of creative solutions to real challenges. And so I hope that as we go through this process, you're able to continue to engage with it and provide your feedback and your input. And certainly whatever the QEP topic ends up being, however that project takes shape. I hope that you're able to find a way to participate in it, to help it be successful. Even if it's not the idea that you would have preferred, or even if it's not quite what you wanted, it's unlikely that there's no way for us to come up with a single project that collectively everybody agrees is the right topic for Dallas College. So even though we can't do that, we want to do our very best to hear from everyone and have everyone who is interested in participating, who is interested in providing input, to give them the opportunity to do so. So I hope that you'll take advantage of those opportunities, particularly in September. As I said, that's probably your best kind of hands-on way to participate and influence the final choices and options that are provided to the committee. And we will, once we have our committee confirmed, we will also post the committee, so you'll be able to see the participation of folks who are on that as well. And throughout the process, we will be posting everything that we do, and all of our updates and our outcomes will be on our SharePoint site. We are working on restructuring some of it, so we don't have our QEP tab up there yet, but we are working on it, so there will be a kind of one-stop place for you to, as we're going through this process, to see where we are and what we've already completed. And I think the really exciting thing is that across Dallas College, we have a lot of folks who have good experience participating, leading, and ensuring the success of our historic QEP projects. And our students that we've talked to are really interested and excited and engaged about identifying a topic that they can influence and that they can participate in and leave as a project behind, to improve the students that are following behind them. So we're excited for this work. It is it's one of the few opportunities where we get to identify one activity that we can collectively get behind and be excited about, and have specific, from the beginning, measurable ways to measure that improvement and that growth that we've taken. So we really appreciate your time in joining us today, and hope that you'll continue to be engaged with the process as we identify our topic and then transition to an implementation team eventually. So thank you so much, and we will we'll post the full this full session with the PowerPoint to our QEP as soon as we're able to process all of it and make sure that we have everything accessible and ready to go. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you in September.